product, data, design, and leadership editions, which was much appreciated by the attendees and the public. So if you have missed it, we have made it available for you. All the sessions recorded here, videos.productleadershipfestival.com. Don't miss this out. Please go ahead and have a look at it. You can find this URL on your chat window as well. Now, if you have a career question, see, being in the space of executive education, we get a lot of questions on mid-career transition. What skills do we pick up? How do we upskill ourselves? What changes are happening all over the world in different frameworks? So we get any kind of questions regarding career. So if you have a burning career question, I will give you a moment here. You can scan this QR code and get a one-on-one session with our faculty. So let me give you a moment here to scan this code. Now, we have lined up wonderful webinars for you throughout this month and August and into September as well. So please see your chat window for the URL where you can register. All these sessions are absolutely free, but registration is mandatory. So please go ahead and register yourself right away. Now, on the 18th of July, that is tomorrow, we have a mid-career transition. So if you are a mid-career professional, and this is a great opportunity for you to understand all about trends in product careers, here are some of the experts we have lined up for you. You can have a one-on-one discussion. They will take you through their journey, their career journey. So it's a great opportunity to network as well. So please go ahead and register. The URL for registration is on your chat window. Now, for the session by our speaker tonight, Satyam, please ask your questions for Satyam only on this LinkedIn thread. If you ask questions in the chat window, we might miss it. So please scan this QR code and keep it ready so that you can ask any question that comes to you as and when Satyam is presenting. And it does not end with that. We have an exciting gift for you. For the person who asks the best question, there are an array of digital learning, e-learning courses that we have come up with. They are very, very highly valued. So mind you, these are courses that that is valued from $99 to $199. We give this course completely free to the winner. So please check out the course by scanning the QR code on your right-hand side. And on the left side is the LinkedIn thread where you can ask questions. Now, coming to tonight's session, I'm very, very happy to welcome and invite Satyam Bansal to tonight's webinar. So Satyam is a VP of Product Management with Sabre Corporation. He has held diverse roles in his career, from leadership roles to entrepreneurial stints. Under his effective leadership, Flipkart grew from a $300 million company to a $5 billion company. He enjoys mentoring young companies. Running and tennis are his other passion. Satyam, it's a privilege to have you with us, and we look forward for your presentation. Over to you.
Thank you, Menika. Just want to make sure if you can hear me fine.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. Once again, apologies, folks, for that bit of a technical snag here. Hopefully, things will be smooth from here on. Wanted to thank you all for joining this session, and a big thanks for Institute of Product Leadership for having me over as part of this session. As Menika mentioned, my name is Satyam Bansal, and I'm currently the Vice President of Product Management at Sabre Corporation. To jump right in, here are a few companies that I've had the good fortune to be associated with as part of my career. Of course, currently I'm at Sabre, who is a global leader in the travel technology space. Sabre powers various airlines and thousands of hotels across the globe with their platforms and applications that drive their inventory management, connectivity to the online travel agencies, their own booking systems, etc. So it's been super exciting for me to be at Sabre for the last almost 1 year now. And before that, most of my career was really built in the consumer tech space with the companies like Retail Me Not, Disney Hotstar, and Flipkart. At Flipkart, of course, I was fortunate enough to be at a point when the company was really going through its truly disruptive sort of a growth phase. And it really felt like driving a rocket ship and being a part of it. And every day was full of healthy chaos. And that is a part of a growth engine which one experiences in a product role, which has been extremely beneficial to me personally in the rest of my career so far. In addition to these companies, I've also enjoyed being associated with various different startups. I've run my own startup in the educational technology space for 6 years. And also now I'm associated with 5 different early stage startup companies as an angel investor and an advisor. And that is a part of my life that really, really keeps me excited on a day-to-day basis, because I'm able to deploy my learnings, my challenges, my experiences from these scaled growth companies that I've been associated with in a professional level to these startups who are really looking for some insights on how do they grow from the early stage to the next explosive growth stage and scale from there on. So I've been very lucky to be having that balance in my professional life between the large ecosystem, the startup ecosystem. So here's which presentation would be complete, I guess, without the picture of an acrobat. So here's a picture of this gentleman by the name of Steve Mills. He is a very famous acrobat who's known for juggling various different widgets and balls, etc., while driving a unicycle in New York. So next time when you're in New York, under more favorable circumstances than what we are going through currently at a macroeconomic level, you must try and visit him wherever he's performing. So the reason I have this picture on display today is because this is sort of a representation of a day in the life of a product manager. It personally, in my life, definitely feels a lot of times that this is what I'm doing in terms of being able to juggle my relationship and inputs with people from various different departments across the company, whether it is marketing or finance or my tech peers or my data scientists, and funneling all those inputs from those folks to try and deliver what I'm supposed to deliver, which is an effective product roadmap, which will drive the product strategy for the company. So it's an exciting role. It's challenging at the same time, because while juggling is an art form or a skill that you develop with a repeated amount of practice, it's ultimately supposed to be fun. So I enjoy tremendously doing what I'm doing, but it definitely does feel like juggling multiple balls at the same time. Today, I'm going to be speaking about 4 broad areas of product management / product leadership. And these are prioritization, data-driven intuition, growth mindset, and org design. And I thought pretty hard about what are the 3 or 4 key areas that I should be touching upon today as part of my talk. And my initial thoughts were, should I speak a little bit about vision, strategy? But quite honestly, more I thought about it, more I felt that those concepts might be a little too abstract for a few minutes of time that we have together today. So I decided to go with areas of product management and product leadership, which are a little bit more tangible, where I can bring certain experiences that I've had in my career and today as well, to give you as examples, and which would really kind of help you take home something more tangible in nature. And really, these are the areas which are also at the cusp of product management and product leadership. And they're all about ultimately connecting dots. And those dots are all the different data points that are around you all the time as a product manager, as a product leader, that you are seeing. And very often the frameworks and the answers that you come up with, the way you drive your business as a product leader in each of these 4 buckets, typically have no right way of doing things. It's all about, like the great Steve Jobs said, connecting dots. So let's jump right into the very first one, which is product prioritization. And I can comfortably say that prioritization of a product roadmap, which basically means what exactly are you going to be prioritizing? We all have, n number of things that we want to be able to do, and there is never enough resourcing available to be able to achieve everything that we want to drive as part of the product roadmap. So prioritization essentially speaks about what are you prioritizing. And the reason I say that it is controversial or a little conflicting is because all the different cross-functional counterparts and peers that you work with have certain things that they want you to do, because ultimately the end consumer base is using what you are building as the owner of the product. So I've tried to divide the large number of options that you might have into three broad buckets, just for the sake of simplicity. And the very first one I'd like to touch upon is the bucket of number movers or metrics movers. These are the ones that essentially, for lack of better better value, pay the bills for us. They are, very measurable. They advance the business in a measurable way. They give our teams and us very tangible, well-defined goals. And if we do get lucky and good at achieving success with moving these numbers or goals, then it really does feel like a drug, and that's all you pretty much want to do day in and day out. To move these numbers, it could be a conversion rate, for example, or it could be the MAUs, monthly active users, that are using your product. So it could be the total number of hours on a per user basis that are being used. All these are specific metrics that in today's product and technology world are measured on a regular basis and are consumed on a regular cadence. So those are the ones which of course form an important part of our purview while we are doing product prioritization. But unfortunately, that is not always something that results into a positive consumer feedback. And this is particularly true in a B2B enterprise software company, where the users, the enterprise users of your products, are specifically very often looking for customized product features. They're looking at you to develop certain things that would benefit them. And the correlation between the feedback that you're receiving from them and the number movers, the metrics movers at the macro or the portfolio level may not necessarily be linear in nature. So how do you actually deal with that? I mean, this is just human behavior that if I ask you to do something and you don't do it, then I might perceive you as somebody who's not necessarily nice. But of course, the world is not that black and white. The consumer relationship and consumer satisfaction, we all know as product people, is sacrosanct. And there is some level of balance that we want to be able to drive between the metrics that we want to be able to move and the consumer feedback, which hopefully over a period of time will also move those metrics for us. And the third thing that that I absolutely don't like to lose sight of is product love. And what I mean by that are some of the longer haul strategic projects or moonshots, which could really become the element of surprise on a continual basis for your consumers, that will develop this sort of irrational love towards your product, that will drive that little bit of adrenaline rush amongst your users who would want to keep coming back and using your product on a regular basis. And a very simple and the best example that all of you are aware of is Apple. We all are aware of the long lines outside the Apple stores before a new product is being launched, new iPhones are being launched, and people have this tremendous amount of pride to be able to buy that Apple phone at full price and really kind of post it on their Instagram and social media to be the proud owners of that. And how do you compete with that kind of an irrational consumer love? And wouldn't it be awesome to be able to get in a position where the consumer have that level of product love for your product? And what is it that you can do to achieve that over a period of time through constant surprises, which are regularly cadenced? The second big bucket that I wanted to touch upon is data-driven intuition. And before I speak about data, I really wanted to double click a little bit about what is intuition. So I did a little bit of research as part of the preparation for this session, and I stumbled upon a few very interesting definitions of intuition. So intuition is having judgment. Intuition is seeing causes and foreseeing consequences. Intuition is seeing the full system. And the interesting thing to me about all of these definitions is that there is an input mechanism and there is an output mechanism. The most favorite one that actually came across, which really kind of beautifully summed up the entire definition, especially as it relates to the world of product, is this one: codifying analysis that get frozen in a person's mind, which causes a feeling in the gut to come alive. So I really thought that was very well articulated And again, this definition has an element of an input mechanism and an output mechanism, that as you are ingesting various different data points which are available to you, can those little dots start forming a full picture, a full Mona Lisa in front of you to develop that intuition? A great example, a rather simple example that I'd love to speak about is when banks are trying to assess credit worthiness of a particular individual, whether it is for a home loan or for any kind of a credit card or whatever. They're not only looking at some kind of a scoring mechanism, they're also looking at, hey, whether you own a home, are you married or not, what kind of education have you had, do you have a stable job? And those are more soft data points which don't necessarily have a score associated with it, but all of those data points sort of come together to form an intuition in an assessor's mind if they would like to be able to offer a credit to a particular individual or not. So, but in order to be able to do that, the input mechanism of data becomes extremely important. And in order for us to do that, we want to measure everything. As product managers, I cannot lay emphasis, and I'm sure I'm not the first one telling you this through all the sessions that you might have gone through before, that data sanctity and the measurement of data and visibility into what's happening in different aspects of your business is what really kind of helps you see the way. Otherwise, you're sort of driving the car blind, which of course is not going to help anything. And it's not only important to measure a particular metric, it's also important to instrument a particular metric correctly. And what I mean by that is the definition of the metric, the way you perceive, is being instrumented in the back in your data analytics tools the way you think it is. To drive that point home a little bit more, if I speak about a metric like conversion rate, the one I was talking about earlier, am I speaking about somebody just giving you the email address so that you can send them your newsletter? Is that conversion? Or is it that when somebody is adding a product to your shopping cart, that is conversion? Or is it when I complete the transaction on the e-commerce website, that is conversion? Or is it the net of cancellations and returns, which is conversion? So in a leadership forum in your company, you might be speaking about conversion rate, but does the crowd, does the audience really understand what is it that you're speaking about specifically, which can have multiple different kinds of definitions associated with them? So important to instrument, important to deeply understand and double click on the data that you are measuring, and are you measuring the right metrics? And even a more important thing, I think, which a lot of companies do way too often than I'd like to see, are obsessing with the KPIs. The key performance indicators, of course, also being measured as OKRs nowadays in a lot of companies, are of course extremely important metrics that we live and make our decisions through. But in a way, to me, they are self-defeating as well. And the reason I say that is that they are sort of aftermath of this happened already. So if there is a certain KPI that I'm expected to deliver, or if I put myself on the hook to deliver by the end of the quarter, if I did not achieve that KPI or I did achieve that KPI, that's an aftermath of whatever happened. What I am personally more interested in is this other bucket of leading indicators, or what are some of those more micro metrics which might be leading up to achieve that specific KPI that you want to be able to deliver. And those are the leading indicators really that are predictors that give you a little bit of a view into the crystal ball, if you will, that whether you are actually on the right track to achieve what you want to be able to achieve. And the focus on those leading indicators are the ones that will probably enhance the chances of your success. And once you've done this instrumentation, once you've done this measurement of different data, once you're consuming it with your other cross-functional counterparts on a day in and day out basis, then you have developed that intuition that we were speaking about earlier. And then you got to be just ready to yield to the instincts that you have formed in your head and pull the trigger and go for it. Moving on, the third bucket that I wanted to speak about a little is a strong growth mindset. I like to think of myself as a growth-driven person. I absolutely love growth. It's also evident from the kind of companies that I've personally been associated with. And if things are not growing, I think it's just a little boring, to be honest with you. And to be able to drive the teams and set the vision for an explosive growth is definitely a responsibility and an inspiration element of a good product leader. The growth element has, over the recent years, come to morph itself into something even more exciting. It used to be called growth hacking a few years ago, and now I particularly don't like that word, but now it's called product growth, and it really is about being able to move the financial metrics through the key performance metrics. And how do you do that? You do that by running a number of experiments, and those experiments could range with digital marketing experiments to design experiments. If I change the copy of a particular thing on my website or on a certain social media post that I might be doing, or if I change the color of a certain thing, then does the adoption or the user experience or the interaction that my users have with my product change dramatically? Or does it not necessarily yield, or does behavior take them in, or a particular flow that might be there? If I can use one flow or three screens versus two screens, what impact does that have with the user behavior? So those are the experiments that we want to be able to run on a large scale basis to drive explosive growth over a period of time. And of course, we want to be able to scale the experiments which show us early signs of success and calibrate or tweak the ones that don't necessarily show us early signs of success. The key mindset to have here is fail quick, fail fast, and move at a very, very quick pace so that you can really kind of develop a pipeline of experiments that can lift the growth tide that every company and every product is looking for. This is a relatively new area of product management that a lot of new age organizations are adopting, but extremely interesting and exciting. I particularly like to look at it with my teams in a very, very simplistic 2x2 matrix kind of an exercise, where you have effort on the x-axis and impact on the y-axis. And I'm always looking for candidates in the growth experiments which lie on the left top, which are low in effort but high in impact. Wouldn't it be great to have those daily? But those are hard to come by, and that's why we need to be able to scale the number of experiments that we are running on a regular basis. To give you an example of that, in 2010, till 2010, Twitter used to be running roughly about 2 experiments every month. And their growth rate was what it was. And then they had a new vice president of growth that joined the company, who really pushed hard to dramatically increase the number of experiments that the company should be running. And look what happened. Since 2010, the user adoption and the growth of the users dramatically grew at Twitter as a result of that. The last aspect that I'd like to touch upon is an optimal org design for maximum impact. And what do I mean by that? I think as product leaders, the org design is one of the key sort of frameworks or the skeleton which makes the body of your product management organization move. We all have individuals and team members that we work with who have specific strengths, who have specific kind of backgrounds, who are more fungible versus maybe not as fungible in their approach. And are we setting all those individuals for success? Have we invested enough time as product leaders to design the organization in a fashion that will deliver the maximum output? And this is a little bit of a moving ball on a constant basis. I have been part of various different org designs through my career. And the one thing that I have absolutely emphatically learned is that there is no right answer. It again really goes back to connecting the dots. The nature of your org design is usually very specific to the character of your company, the product that you're trying to deliver, the teams that you have, the individuals that are contributing towards all those goals, and what is the best framework of that org design that will lend itself organically to the maximum impact. At Sabre, quite recently, we went through a very interesting org redesign where we went from what we used to call a product line organization to a functional organization. And to tell you a little bit more about that, Sabre Hospitality, where I work currently, has various different applications that the hospitality industry and the hotels use. And the way our product teams were organized and the development teams were organized was that each of these product lines had specific product teams and specific development teams. And if there is a skill set like payments, for example, which is a subject matter expertise, or if there is a skill set like somebody is really well aware of how to design a pricing engine or a promotions engine, those were constrained within those product lines. By pivoting the org from a line org to a functional org, what we did was we made these specific subject matter experts available to other product lines as well, which has now allowed us to do a lot more with a lot less. And that really is the mantra today, especially in the world that we are living in, where how can we really optimize the resources to the maximum impact and leverage our peers, our colleagues that might be sitting in another part of the organization in a more deliberate fashion to the advantage of our own products. So before I sign off, I will want to leave you with a small exercise that I have been trying to do myself over the last few months. And that exercise is to make a list of your epiphanies. Epiphanies, of course, are these light bulbs that go in our heads periodically, those aha moments that we have. And I have been really fortunate to be working with individuals, with teams that frankly are a lot smarter than I am. And as I go through my interactions and my work with these folks on a day-to-day basis, I observe individuals keenly and I see somebody doing something which is extremely effective and would be done in a much better fashion than I would probably do. And that really forms a part of my epiphany. And I make it a point to write it down somewhere. And over a period of time, my list of epiphanies has grown that I try to look at every morning before I really start my day. And that sort of becomes a little bit of a guiding framework for me. It really motivates and inspires me. So I'll give you a little bit of a snapshot into 3 or 4 epiphanies that I have had lately. One is, hey, don't try to please everyone. Because guess what? If you're going to try and please everyone around you, the only person who you are not going to please is yourself. And it's, as you know, always this needs to be a marathon and not a sprint. And you need to be happy going into work every day. So it is extremely important to not try and please everyone. That doesn't mean that you don't have empathy towards your peers, with the people you're working with, because I genuinely believe that empathy as a product manager and good communication is the number one core skill set of a good product leader and a product manager. But that empathy element, of course, needs to be rational in nature. And the second one I'd like to speak about is be relentless. Just be relentless, because there will be roadblocks every day in your way. And if you don't push hard, if you don't try and figure out creative ways of getting around the hurdles in your way, that's the only way to achieve success. And the third one is zoom out. The day of a product manager, as I was speaking earlier, is busy, and it's very easy for us to get caught up into customer escalations, security incidents, some fraud related issue, outages, all different kinds of things really cloud our minds on a day-to-day basis. But it's important to kind of put your legs up on the table and zoom out a little bit and articulate yourself. What is it that I'm in for? What is it that I'm trying to do? And am I really kind of marching towards that goal that I need to get to eventually? And the last one that I will leave with, and I promise to shut up after that, is burn the ego. I think ego is the enemy. This is a really famous picture actually from an art festival that a lot of you might be aware of called Burning Man, which happens annually in in a desert in Nevada. And this is an effigy that was created by an artist called Laura Kimpton, who literally created these life-size murals of EGO and burnt it. And when I saw this picture, it really kind of was powerful for me, especially in the framework of interacting with so many different folks that we work with. And the only way to speed through our days and to really kind of get to where we want to get to is to not make ego a part of our lives and our working relationships. With that powerful image, I will hand it over back to you, Menuka. Thank you.
That was short and sharp. That's what I would say, Satyam. That was wonderful, and you had me thinking on the burn the ego effigy. That was wonderful session. Thank you so much. So while we have Satyam here, please ask your questions on the LinkedIn thread. I already see some questions come in. So can I read out one of the questions for you? This is
Absolutely.
from this is from Prince. So he's asking for a platform that's looking to leverage globalization to revolutionize an untapped industry. Would your approach be to start with a basic establishment to grow user base, or a radical innovation that may induce a lot of learning and adaptation for the customer segments before it can properly capture the market? So this is the question from Prince.
Okay. Thank you, Prince, for that wonderful question. Um, it's a little tricky for me to answer that question because, really speaking, every product has its own character, its own nature, its own TAM, or target addressable market, that it is working towards, and the user behaviors in that TAM are in a certain place today. And uh, the the general approach, if I were in your shoes, that I'd like to take is, I would probably want to balance those two. I would want to probably uh, stay maybe about 20 to 30 degrees away from where the status quo might be today. So advance the product from where the user behaviors might be today, while you also in parallel uh, experiment with some radical shifts that can drive. Because the danger with experimenting with a radical shift is that the outcome can be binary. If it is something which is just a little bit of a shell shock for the users, then it might fall flat in its face. So it's always better to kind of tiptoe inch your way into how you're actually thinking about the product strategy, unless you have strong signs, strong empirical data that really kind of makes you believe that that radical change that you're trying to shift the user behavior towards can actually find a user adoption, at least in a subset of early adopters. I would probably make that as mid to long term goal.
Great, thank you. So Prince has one more question: KPIs or OKRs?
Wow. I think both. In my mind, KPIs are more granular in nature, and OKRs, you don't want to have too many OKRs, because then things get lost. Um, Typically, OKRs on team levels are two, maximum three, but the KPIs, or even more granular leading indicators that I was speaking about in my session earlier, are the ones that lead up to the OKRs. So yeah, OKRs are bigger buckets, which really kind of define broad objectives, which at the highest leadership level, the CXOs, etc., would want to ingest and would want to measure your progress with. But then ultimately, it is the KPIs and the leading indicators that actually move you towards those OKRs. So I don't think it is a either or. It is really both of them need to be done together.
Great. I hope that answers your question, Prince. Let's move on to Rajan Sharma. He has a question. How do you go about arriving at long-term product roadmap given the dynamism in today's world where strategies get impacted by internal and external factors fairly quickly? So just to clarify, his long-term is 1 to 2 years.
Got it. Great question again. It's tricky, and once again, I would uh, want to balance my product roadmap in a balanced way of short to mid to longer term initiatives. And it really sort of goes back again to the three buckets of prioritization that I was touching upon, if I can reference that again, where metrics movers are more short term goals, which will allow you to deliver stuff which is more here and now, which is absolute basic bread butter of your business, which you really can't, move your eyes off from. And those are the ones that pay the bills. And liquidity and capital to keep running your business effectively is the most important thing. There's no other way to say. Uh, but at the same time, the product love element that you want to be able to drive, which is more of a longer moonshot goal, to your point, a 1 to 2 year, it could be even a little shorter than that, could span over 2 to 3 quarters, which will really cause that element of surprise and freshness and adrenaline rush amongst your users, is something that you want to be continuously moving towards and iterating towards. But you're right, there could be internal and external factors that might completely blow that longer term initiative that you're moving towards away. And you might have to backtrack and rethink. But in order to not yourself become so vulnerable and get yourself exposed to that eventuality, it has to be a balanced approach where you're not betting the whole farm on that longer term moonshot, that sexy product that you want to be able to build, but taking a well balanced approach between those two. Yeah.
Great. So one more question from Rajan. How hard was it for your org to align people on a common set of measures to decide on prioritization? Any learnings or takeaways?
The short answer is always tough. And again, going back to one of the epiphanies that I was referencing, that don't try and make everybody happy. There'll always be someone who will not be particularly pleased with the decisions or the choices that you made. But as long as you have been empathetic, you've been considerate, you have in a genuine manner built in inputs with the limited amount of resources. I mean, I have never been at a company, whether it is a little startup that I might be associated with, or a large company, whether it is a Sabre or a Flipkart or a Hotstar, where engineering resources were not limited. The development capacity that you have is, like, I like to call it, like drops of oil. Where there's the resourcing is always only so much that you have, and you have to make choices. And while your different cross-functional counterparts, whether it is your business development associate or your marketing counterpart or your sales VP, they all want you to do things, because ultimately you're the holder and the owner and the guardian of the product that the end users are experiencing. And rightfully so, because they're trying to do their job well. But there is this balancing act that you have to be able to do, like riding that unicycle image that I presented earlier, to keep the business running in the right direction and make the right choices, which would give you the maximum amount of impact for the choices. So it's always a challenge, and I've never in my life gone through a particular quarterly planning session where everybody was happy. But that's just how life is.
Yeah. Thank you. There is this question from Karthik Shankar. How critical are mental models for product managers for taking quick decisions?
I think they're quite critical. And I think that's a great question again, because unless there is a deliberate mental framework or a mental model that you are going about your day with on a day-to-day basis, it's so easy as a product manager to be just lost, and be thrown into the fire with a number of firefighting issues which land on your table on a day-to-day basis. So the mental models really help you calibrate. They really help you calibrate your bandwidth. They help you calibrate your decision making. They help you calibrate your speed. They help you calibrate, how do you actually be a product leader and deal with people issues, which really start taking more and more of your bandwidth as you move from product management into product leadership, and they become guiding lights. And that's why, again, referencing the epiphanies bit that I spoke about earlier, those are the frameworks essentially that I personally use for myself. And maybe they're more formal, well-written frameworks. I know Neil Ayal has been a speaker at Institute of Product Leadership, and he's created, of course, his very famous book and his model, which is Hooked, which helps you think through how do you actually get your users hooked onto your product. So that's a mental model which is powerful and definitely helps you think through things.
Thank you. And let's take one last question, if that is okay. So we have
Absolutely, go for it.
we have a question from Vishal Kumar. Uh, so here is a very straightforward question. Resolving support tickets is quite a cumbersome task and it's annoying. How do you handle this every day?
Um, it depends upon the size of the company and the resourcing. I would I would ideally not I would ideally like to have another layer of support ticket resolution between the customer support team and the product managers. If product managers are involved in hundreds and thousands or whatever the number is of support tickets, and they can range for something extremely small and granular to something truly strategic, you will just not be able to do anything. And that's not the role of a product manager. I would ideally like to have some kind of a solutions consulting or a layer that understands the product well enough to be able to help resolve those support tickets with the customer support team. And if there are certain issues which that layer is just not able to deal with, and it's just too into the weeds or technical for them, then those things should ideally bubble up to the product managers, because typically there are not hundreds of product managers. The product management teams are fairly limited and small in most of the companies, and you need to be your key job really is to funnel inputs from your big counterparts in sales, marketing, finance, taxation, whatever, and funnel all that input into the product roadmap. And of course, the tickets do inform you what the customers are talking about, and they're a very, very important insight. But I wouldn't go down to resolving personally those tickets on a day to day basis. That cannot be a part of my day job.
Thank you. We have one question from Abdul Karim here. Ideally, the startups struggle to break even and keep prioritizing the number movers. How does one move out of this cycle and pick up something that the product team wants to build?
Balance, once again, it is a difficult, vicious cycle, and I think that really is where leadership comes into play. um, you know there is no one right answer, but you have to be able to balance uh, things which help you pay the bills, move things on a day-to-day basis, and the longer term things that are truly strategic, which will fundamentally change the game or have the capability of fundamentally changing the game. But if your eye is only on the second one, then how will you pay the bills? So it has to be a balance. And of course, it varies from company to company, life cycle to life cycle, stage to stage. How much capital have you raised from your investors? Are you already cash positive or not? How much cushion do you need to keep? All those things need to funnel into a leader's evaluation to figure out, how do I split my capacity? Do I allocate, 40% of my capacity to a moonshot, or do I allocate 10% of my capacity to a moonshot? There are maintenance issues, there are defect issues, there are DevOps issues. All those things are more here and now and day to day, which contribute to the stability of your product, which really need to be taken care of. So um, evaluate and see what is the best that you can do to allocate a certain amount of bandwidth to the longer term moonshots that you can.
Great. Thank you, Satyam. Just to add one point, the author that Satyam has mentioned here, Nirayal, the author of Hooked, he was one of the keynote speakers at our Product Leadership Festival, which we concluded in July. In case you guys want to take a look at the webinar or the keynote recording of Nirayal, please go to our webpage and have a look. Everything is available on the chat window. And before we close the session tonight, we would really like to know what comes to your mind when you hear the term product leader. So please scan this QR code, go to Slido, and let us know what you think. Please go ahead right away. This would also show us your takeaway from these sessions. Please go ahead. That's interesting.
Yeah, those are some interesting phrases. Love it.
Please go ahead. We'll give you one more, few more seconds. Let us know what you're thinking. That is sweet. Okay, great. So that was a wonderful, wonderful session, Satyam. Please accept the certificate of appreciation from us. We had such a great learning session with you, and I'm very sure that all of the attendees love this. And so this is this QR code on the certificate. It takes you to the dedicated web page that we have created for you, where this webinar recording will be available. And we are please accept our gratitude, and this has been great. We hope to work with you again. Thank you, Satyam, for your time, and hope all of you guys enjoyed this session. And we have many more such lovely sessions coming up. So on the 21st July, we have one more webinar. To register, you can follow the URL which is on the chat window. So Satyam, before we close for the day, let me request you to pick a winner, the best question that you like.
Um, I actually really like the very first question about the I don't remember the name of, I think Prince was his
Prince.
name,
Yes.
where he spoke about the platform approach around
Correct.
globalization. So I'll pick that. Yeah.
Yes, great. Prince, so you are the winner. Congratulations. We will reach out to you with your gift, which is a highly valued digital program. So, congrats, Prince. We will reach out to you. Thank you, Satyam. Please join us back again for other webinars and keep winning more prizes. And we hope to work with you again, Satyam. Thank you so much.
All the questions were great, by the way. And once again, thank you all for attending and asking all these engaging questions, and IPL to have me over. Thank you.
Thank you so much.